From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a WisPolitics Capital Chats episode brought to you by Spectrum. I'm Kate Morton with WisPolitics.com, here with my colleague Adam Kellenhofer to talk about his interview with Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu. So, Adam, what are some of the things that you guys talked about in that interview?
Yeah, Kate, so one of the most interesting things we talked about was his opinions on Natural Resources Board members, especially those appointed by former Governor Scott Walker. So let's just break right into it and hear what he had to say.
Number one question, have you spoken with Governor Evers since our WisPolitics luncheon when you and Voss announced that he left that message?
We've played phone tag, so I haven't actually talked to him, but I left him a message, he left me a message, and we have a meeting scheduled.
Oh, when's the meeting scheduled for?
In the future.
Okay. Any idea what you guys might talk about?
You know, I have some ideas on what I want to talk about. I'm sure I'll get questions on these different issue areas here soon, but, about tax relief and, some of the priorities that we look forward to getting accomplished this session.
So still tax breaks are number one priority or one of the top priorities?
I believe it should be our top priority. We have a $6.6 billion surplus because people are paying more in taxes than we need. So it makes sense to provide, and so we have an opportunity to provide, historic transformational tax cuts in this budget.
Got it. What are some of your other priorities going into this session? Like, what would you really like to get done?
So, in the last budget, obviously, it was a different budget because of all the federal money coming into the state of Wisconsin. So we took an opportunity to invest in some things like healthcare, transportation, while not specifically, investing a whole lot into K-12 education and things like that. So I think this provides us an opportunity this time to make sure we're investing in areas that we need to, such as education, continue our investments in healthcare because of the challenges that they're having with workforce issues. Probably a nice investment into the state's corrections facilities because we're still just struggling finding correctional officers and employees at our prisons. And I think we need to look at maybe some funding for district attorneys and things like that, because there's been sort of a struggle for counties to hire district attorneys.
Yeah, I heard that quite a bit covering the Attorney General's race with interviewing DA Tony. Interestingly enough, I actually just got done with an interview with Representative Steffen, and he kind of pitched the idea again to build a replacement for Green Bay Correctional. What do you think of that idea?
I guess the interesting thing would be the details involved in it. I know I met with him in the past, and that's been his issue for quite a while now. Mm-hmm. And I haven't taken a look at how he intends to do that currently, but I think that is, from my recollection, one of the oldest in poor condition prisons in the state. So, it's probably something we're going to have to address at some point. I'll take a look at it.
All right. Who are some of your picks for the Joint Finance Committee this year?
So I just finished up my meetings with all my members. Last session and this session after the election with 5 new caucus members, but also all of our current caucus members, just to discuss committees in general, what committees are currently serving on, what committees they might be interested in, and so now I'm working on trying to put that puzzle together. So hopefully with finance members and overall committees, I'll have that later on this week, and we can send it over to the minority leader and she can make her appointments to those committees.
Okay. Any kind of hints at names for who might be leaders of committees or new faces?
I think JR has done a pretty good job of identifying who wants to be on that committee.
He does like to do that. Okay. What about other committees? Any focuses, like any specific committees you really want to pay? I know you pay attention to all the committees, but any ones that you really, really want to focus on this session?
Well, it's going to be an interesting session because we've lost or have some members not returning who have been longtime committee chairs of certain committees, specifically, Bernier in elections and Petrowski in transportation. With Alberta resigning now, that's an opening on the education committee, which is an issue area that a lot of people have interest in, especially since the pandemic. So, we're looking to maybe streamline committees a little bit, cut down by one or two or so.
Okay.
But I think we have a good plan that we're working on, and we have some new members who have strong interests in different areas. So I'm excited about getting the committee structure out there.
Okay. Can you kind of talk more about that streamlining committees? Like, what do you mean by that?
Reducing by one or two our standing committees.
Okay. So kind of just reducing like membership, so there's less stuff in public hearings and stuff like that. Okay, got it. So for the 8th Senate District, which you mentioned with Alberta Darling, do you have any favorite candidates for that race, or candidates that you really don't want to see, or let me rephrase that. Any candidates that you see would maybe present a challenge in the election, more so than other candidates?
Well, I think it's a little premature because we don't know who's all going to be running yet. There could be more people announcing in the near future. It's my job to make sure that whoever wins a primary gets over the finish line. In this past election cycle, in some of our seats that were incumbents didn't run again, I did pick a winner or loser in those primaries, and I look forward to doing that again in this primary. I know there's members of my caucus who have relationships with different people who are running or might be running, so I think it's incumbent on me to stay out of the process and let it play out itself.
Okay. So speaking more generally about that race, if a Democrat were to take that seat, which Tim Michaels got 51% of the vote in that district, that would get rid of the 2/3 majority. How concerned are you about that?
Well, since we have a Democrat governor, and the Assembly doesn't have a 2/3 majority, our 2/3 is more just procedural, or would be potentially advantageous procedurally on the floor, but outside of that, my goal is to win every seat that I can win. I was 700 votes short of a 23rd seat this fall, unfortunately. So I'm obviously very interested in holding onto that seat. It's been one that Alberta's had for a long time, and we hope to keep it in Republican hands. I believe Ron Johnson got 55%-ish in that district, so those are the numbers I'm looking at.
All right. Okay, that makes perfect sense to me. So for the board appointments, for the Natural Resources Board, Tech Colleges Board, cabinet appointments, are any of those appointees going to be moving forward? Like, are you going to put them up for a vote in the Senate, or move forward with those at all?
So we're going to start the committee process over again with appointments, refer appointments to committees, let the committees do their job in vetting them, and Evers is going to have to make the case for some of his appointees, which we may have some challenges with along the way, but we'll do our due diligence in the Senate of confirming, and I'm sure there may be some that we vote down, but we'll confirm some too.
All right. Staying with the appointments, is there any news on any of those Walker appointees that have been staying on some of those boards, like Fred Preen or some members of the Tech Colleges Board?
I have not talked to any of those, so I'm unaware they intend to stay on in those roles.
Okay. Are you going to, if you do talk with them in the future, are you going to encourage any of the Walker appointees to stay on or leave the board or anything like that?
So I've been concerned with some of Walker's appointees, especially in the natural resources field. I think I think it's incumbent on the governor to, and especially with the new DNR secretary coming, that's going to be appointed by the governor at some point, we're going to need reasonable appointees in that area if we're going to approve them, because they can make such a difference on businesses, farming, different areas like that. So it's hunting. So I'm hoping that the governor doesn't take environmental extremists and appoint them to these positions, because that's not going to work.
Sure. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that I may have missed?
No, I mean, I'm optimistic since I'm meeting with the governor that, and having a surplus which is still only projected.
Right.
So we don't know what that number is going to be. I think in April we'll have a better feel when the Fiscal Bureau comes out with their April estimate, which then we'll be heavily working on the budget at that point. But since we do have a really good situation that, I think is partially because of our astute budgeting for the last decade, being responsible, we put ourselves in this good position with the inflation and everything coming in that, families are struggling out there. Energy prices are up and everything. So we have a huge opportunity to provide, historic tax cuts while still, investing in core areas. So hopefully we can get the governor on board and we can work out a plan that, he can take a couple victories on, and we can provide immense tax relief for the entire state of Wisconsin. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, Adam, thanks for sharing that interview with us. And if our listeners want to hear any more about some of Senator LeMahieu's committee picks that were released last week, they can head to wispolitics.com for details.
That's right, Kate. But for now, I'm Adam Kelnhofer.
I'm Kate Morton.
Thanks for tuning in to another Capital Chats episode brought to you by Spectrum.